Step into the future bright and bold. With Taebi Lab where stories unfold. Discover the magic research we unfold. Taebi Lab, where science takes hold.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Really excited today, actually.
Me too.
We get to share some pretty cutting-edge stuff that's coming right out of our own group, Taebi Lab.
Yeah, and it sort of connects back to something we talked about way back in our first deep dive, remember?
Oh, definitely. That work on non-contact heart vibration measurements using computer vision.
That's the one, the 2023 Scientific Reports paper. Well, this new work really builds on that foundation. It's like the next chapter.
It really is. And we're going to dig into this brand new paper today. It's titled From Video to Vital Signs, a New Method for Contactless Multichannel Seismocardiography.
Quite a title.
It is. And the team is fantastic. Our colleagues, Mohammad Muntasir Rahman, Bahram Kakavand, William Van Wurm, William L. Holman, Mohammad Reza Movahed, and of course, Amirtahà Taebi.
And this just came out this year, 2025, published in NPJ Cardiovascular Health. Really prestigious.
Absolutely.
And the core idea, well, it sounds almost deceptively simple at first glance, using a regular smartphone video.
Right, like the one probably everyone listening has.
Exactly. Using that video camera to capture those incredibly tiny vibrations from your heart. But, and this is the key bit, from multiple places on the chest at once.
And all totally contactless, no wires, no sensors stuck on you.
No, not at all.
Okay, so let's maybe unpack this a bit, because this could be, well, huge for our listeners, right? Imagine being able to monitor your heart health, get real insights, just using your phone.
Yeah, that's the potential. It could make things so much more cost-effective and accessible.
Definitely. So maybe we should start with the problem they were trying to solve. Like, what were the old ways of doing this?
Good idea. So, measuring these heart vibrations, seismocardiography, or SCG, traditionally meant using an accelerometer, a little sensor.
Which you have to stick onto the chest, right? Contact is required.
Precisely. And doing that accurately, maybe moving it around to find the best spot.
Yeah.
It can be quite laborious, not really practical for everyday at-home monitoring.
And there were other contactless methods out there already, weren't there? Like lasers.
There were, lasers, sometimes radar or ultrasound techniques. But the issue there is usually cost and complexity. They often need expensive, specialized gear.
So not exactly something you'd have lying around the house?
Not usually, no. So what was really missing was a method that was convenient, didn't need contact, but could still give us that detailed, multi-point, high-resolution picture of the heart's vibrations.
And that's where this new paper comes in.
Exactly. This new method from our lab starts pretty simply, actually. You place a grid of small patterned stickers on the chest.
Okay, stickers, like QR codes or something similar.
Sort of like that, yeah. Little patterned markers.
Yeah.
And then you just record a short video of the chest with a normal smartphone. Nothing fancy.
And then the magic happens in the software, I guess, the computer vision part.
That's right. This is where it gets really clever. They use a deep learning model, a specific type called YOLOB 7, actually, to first find all those stickers in the video frame. And it's trained pretty well, apparently using things like QR codes and even the gaps between the stickers to locate them super accurately right from the start.
Wow. Okay. So it finds the stickers. Then what?
Then, once it knows where they are initially, it uses another technique called template tracking. Basically, it locks onto each sticker's pattern and follows its movement frame by frame throughout the video.
But these movements must be incredibly tiny, right? We're talking about heart vibrations.
Minuscule, absolutely tiny, which is why they also use something called sub-pixel refinement.
Sub-pixel, so looking between the pixels of the video image.
Kinda, yeah. It allows them to measure movements that are much smaller than a single pixel in the video. Really enhances the precision, allows us to track those very subtle displacements.
Okay, so you track the sticker movements really precisely, and then that gives you the heart vibration signals.
Exactly. From those tiny tracked movements, they extract the SCG signals. And they do it in two main directions. The right-to-left movement across the chest and the head-to-foot movement.
Right, the two planar directions you can see from the phone's perspective.
Correct.
And the key here is multi-channel, isn't it? Getting signals from all those different sticker locations.
Yes, that's the big leap forward from earlier work. Instead of just one data point, you get this whole array of signals, much higher spatial resolution.
Like, you mentioned the orchestra analogy before. One microphone versus many.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. With multiple microphones, or in this case, multiple measurement points, you capture a much richer, more detailed picture of what's happening mechanically across the whole chest area.
So what does that extra detail actually let you do? What's the benefit for, say, a doctor or even the person themselves?
Well, one immediate benefit is finding the best spot. With data from multiple locations, you can identify which areas on the chest give the most reliable signal for things like calculating heart rate accurately.
Okay, that makes sense. But you said it goes further than just heart rate.
Well, much further. Because you have this spatial information, you can actually build what the team calls SCG maps.
Maps, like visualizing the vibrations.
Exactly. Think of it like a heat map overlaid on the chest, where the colors change to show how strongly the chest is vibrating in different areas and how that changes over the heartbeat cycle.
Wow.
It gives a way more comprehensive view of the heart's mechanics than just a single signal ever could. You can start to see patterns related to, say, blood being ejected forcefully or how the valves are working, more detail than we had before.
That sounds incredibly powerful, and I think they even used AI to make those maps better.
They did. Another clever step. They developed a deep learning model, specifically to enhance the resolution of these SCG maps.
How does that work? Is it like guessing what's happening between the stickers?
Sort of, but it's an educated guess. It interpolates, it takes the signals measured at the sticker location.
Zone points.
Right, and it learns the relationship between nearby points to predict what the vibration signal likely looks like between those measured points.
So if you have, say, a 4x4 grid of stickers,
The model could effectively turn that into something closer to a 7x7 grid of data points. It fills in the gaps, creating a higher resolution map.
that's neat. Did they test how well that works?
Oh yeah. They trained separate models for the right to left and head to foot directions using data from 14 healthy participants. Then they split that data, used some for training, some for checking the training.
Standard practice.
Right. And then they tested it properly on data from 3 new participants the models hadn't seen before.
And the results? How good were the predictions?
Really good, actually. They use standard metrics. MSE and RMSE mean squared error and root mean squared error. Lower numbers are better, meaning the predictions were closer to reality.
Okay.
And the MSE and RMSE values they reported were very low for both directions, on both the validation data and the completely new test data. It showed the interpolation was working accurately.
So it genuinely gives you a finer-grained map of the chest vibrations.
It does. And this lets you create these really cool visualizations. Figure 3 in the paper shows it, well, you can literally watch the vibration patterns change and move across the chest during a single heartbeat.
That must be fascinating to see.
It really is. And what's more, when they looked at these patterns across different people, but at specific, consistent times in the heart's electrical cycle, points identified by an ECG like the QRS complex or the Q wave,
Yeah.
they found remarkable consistency in the patterns of vibration across individuals at those key moments. You can see that in Figure 4.
So suggesting these visual patterns really do correspond to important cardiac events.
It strongly suggests that, yes, things like valve closures or blood ejection phases seem to create characteristic vibration signatures on these maps.
Okay, that links the visual map back to actual heart function.
Yeah.
What about basic vital signs like heart rate? Can you get that reliably from this video method?
Yes, and that was another key part of the study. The team developed an algorithm, they call it HRV, specifically to estimate heart rate directly from these vision-based SCG signals.
Without needing an ECG at the same time.
Exactly. It's adaptive and ECG independent. And they tested it thoroughly on nearly 2,000 different SCG signals from the 14 participants.
And how accurate was it compared to, say, a standard ECG?
Extremely accurate. The comparison against the gold standard ECG showed a tiny average difference. The bias was only 0.04 beats per minute, plus or minus a standard deviation of about 2.14 BPM.
That's very close.
It is. And the correlation was incredibly high. R equals 0.99, statistically very significant. It shows the video method can provide reliable heart rate estimation.
How does the algorithm actually work? Is it just finding peaks?
It's a bit smarter than that. It's a two-step process. First, it makes a rough initial estimate of the heart rate.
Okay.
Then it refines that estimate using something called K-means clustering, which sort of groups similar beat patterns together, and it adaptively adjusts how it identifies the peaks in the signal based on that initial estimate. It makes it more robust.
Clever. And did they find, going back to the multi-channel idea, that some sticker locations were better than others for getting that accurate heart rate?
Yes, definitely. By analyzing the accuracy from each location, they could pinpoint the optimal regions.
And where were they, roughly?
Generally, the area kind of enclosed by the midclavicular lines drawn down from the middle of the collarbones and between the sternal angle at the top and down to about the fifth rib.
So sort of overlying the main part of the heart.
Pretty much, yeah. In that region, the accuracy index was consistently high, over 90%, and the agreement with ECG was excellent. The bias and correlation figures were particularly good in this specific zone.
It's also interesting, isn't it, how much the signal itself can just vary across the chest, even on one person.
Oh, absolutely. Figure 6 in the paper shows this really well. There's quite significant intra-subject variability.
How did they quantify that?
They looked at it row by row and column by column across the sticker grid. For instance, moving down the chest. The mean square difference, a measure of how much the signal changes, tended to increase compared to the signals higher up.
So the vibration pattern changes as you move downwards.
Yeah, both for the right to left and head to foot components. And similarly, moving sideways, laterally away from the heart's central axis, the difference also tended to increase.
And they also compared everything to a single reference point.
Yes, they used a signal from the manubrium, that bony part at the top of the sternum, as a reference.
Yeah.
And they found generally the further away a measurement point was from that reference, the greater the difference in the signal shape.
It really emphasizes how complex the vibration field is across the chest surface.
It does. But that complexity is also potentially very informative.
How so?
Well, think about the heart's orientation in the chest. It sits at an angle. So whether a vibration is mainly moving side to side, right, left, or up and down, head, foot, might tell you something about what part of the heart's action is causing it.
Ah, okay. Like maybe atrial contraction causes one type of motion and ventricle ejection causes another.
Potentially, yes. The paper discusses how certain patterns might relate to specific events, like atrial contraction, mitral valve closure, aortic valve opening, that rapid ejection phase. The directionality matters.
Which leads us neatly into the potential applications, I suppose. This sounds like it could be used for more than just heart rate.
Definitely. The team highlights several exciting future directions. Because it gives such detailed mechanical information non-invasively, it could potentially be used to help diagnose valvular heart conditions.
Like leaky valves or narrowed valves, aortic regurgitation or stenosis.
Exactly, things like that. Detecting the abnormal vibrations associated with those conditions.
What else?
Well, serial monitoring. Tracking changes over time. Maybe monitoring parameters like the QT interval, which is usually from an ECG, but perhaps related mechanical timings could be tracked. Monitoring how well valves are closing or if there's insufficiency.
Could it even tell you about how well the heart is pumping, like ventricular function?
That's another possibility they mentioned. Evaluating left and maybe even right ventricular function, potentially estimating cardiac output, how much blood is pumped per beat, all derived from analyzing these detailed vibration maps.
And you mentioned earlier the processing could maybe happen on the phone.
Yeah, that's a really appealing prospect, analyzing these SCG maps directly on the device, making it self-contained.
Of course, no research is perfect first time. Are there limitations they acknowledge?
Yes, they're clear about that. A key one currently is that standard smartphone cameras mostly capture motion in the plane of the chest, the right, left, and head-foot directions.
Right, they don't easily see the front-to-back motion, the dorsiventral component.
Exactly. And that component also contains potentially useful SCG information. So capturing that third dimension is something they identify as an area for future work.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Well, the initial study focused on healthy individuals. So the next big steps are validation in broader populations, people of different ages, health statuses, and critically, people with various cardiovascular conditions.
To see how well it works in the real world, basically.
Precisely. And also looking at environmental factors, how things like movement or background noise might affect the readings.
Okay. But summing it all up, even with those future steps needed, this sounds, well, really promising.
It absolutely does. The main takeaway, I think, for everyone listening is that our colleagues here at Taebi Lab have developed this genuinely exciting method. It's cost-effective, it's accessible, using tech most people already have.
Your smartphone.
And it offers a way to get contactless, detailed insights into your heart's mechanics. Not just heart rate, but potentially much more about how your heart is actually functioning physically.
It really does bridge that gap between simple tracking and complex clinical assessment, potentially.
It feels like it could, yeah. Which leads to maybe a final thought for our listeners to ponder. What does it mean if we all have a tool like this, potentially right in our pockets? A tool that can give us this kind of detailed insight into our heart health, easily and regularly. How could that change how we think about proactive health management or catching problems earlier?
That's a great question to leave people with. The implications are potentially huge.
They really are.
Well, that was a fascinating look at this new work. And as a final note, we should acknowledge that this deep dive was created by generative AI using source material kindly provided by Taebi Lab.
Indeed. Great work from the team.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for tuning into the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
We dive into science with heart.